Long ago, in a small village in West Africa, there lived a young orphan boy named Kalu. From the moment he was born, Kalu's life had been filled with hardship and heartache. You see, Kalu was blind, unable to see the bright blazing sun, the swaying trees, or even his own reflection in the stream. His world was a realm of endless darkness, with only sounds, smells, and textures to guide him. Sadly, Kalu's blindness caused superstitious villagers to look upon him with fear and distrust. They viewed his sightless eyes as an evil curse, whispering that he had been born under an unlucky star. So from his earliest days, Kalu was shunned and mistreated by the very people who should have cared for him the most. The cruel children mocked his blindness, throwing stones and chasing him through the dusty roads. Even the adults turned their backs, denying Kalu food or shelter, leaving the poor orphan to fend for himself in alleys and fields. Some nights, he cried pitiful cries that could be heard echoing across the village until his tiny voice at last fell silent from exhaustion. Why am I being punished this way? Kalu often wondered, tears streaming from his useless eyes. What evil have I done to deserve such cruelty? But for all his suffering, Kalu refused to surrender to despair and anger. Deep within was a heart filled with unshakable courage and hope for a better tomorrow. As the years passed, Kalu learned to only rely on his other keen senses to help him survive the harsh realities of being a blind village orphan. His ears became finely tuned to every rustle of the grass and cry of the animals. His supple fingers could identify the slightest grooves of rock and tree bark, recreating shapes and pathways in his mind's eye. And his preternatural sense of smell helped him locate water sources and stalk prey with the instinct of a born hunter. Still, Kalu's plight was truly a pity to witness. His body was lean and underfed from the frequent times he went hungry. His ragged clothes and uncombed hair gave him the appearance of a wild animal. Yet, this often forgotten orphan possessed an inner strength and resolve that could not be extinguished easily. He worked tirelessly, performing menial tasks for a few villagers who showed him charity, pounding grain, hauling water, and even tending to livestock. Through it all, Kalu dreamt of the day he would finally be freed from this life of torment and degradation. He dreamed of being seen as an equal, even with his blindness, and proving his worth to the world. Then one fateful dry season arrived like deliverance. Though no one could have anticipated the remarkable turn of events it would bring. The village well had run dry. The earth's unforgiving sun baking the lands and cracking wasteland. What little water could be found rapidly turned too foul or contaminated to sustain the villagers and their crops. A council was quickly set up to determine a solution to the crisis. The elders advocated sending scouts far across the savannah in hopes of locating a new water source to sustain them. With desperation increasing, the scouts returned week after week with the same dire reports. Every surrounding water hole, oasis, and stream had been greedily sapped dry by the relentless drought. Panic began taking root in the hearts of the villagers. It was then that an astonishing proclamation came from the most unlikely of sources. The blind orphan boy named Kalu. Elders of the village, I can hear the songs of running water, Kalu declared in a bold, unwavering voice. I can lead us to salvation if you will only trust me. Disbelieving sneers and whispers erupted from the assembled crowd at Kalu's boasts. How could this sightless wretch of an orphan possess knowledge that had eluded all their scouts? But as thirst continued to tighten its unforgiving grip, even the smallest glimmer of hope looked radiant compared to the despair of perishing in the cracked earth village. The elders decided to gamble what little they had left on trusting Kalu. Early the next morning, Kalu led a crowd of dehydrated villagers and nearly all their remaining livestock out across the arid expanse of the savannah in a seeming quest of madness. The blind orphan forged ahead with determined steps over the blistering sands and sun-baked rocks, allowing his ears to follow the faint titanic whisperings only he could perceive. On they marched for one entire day, then 2, then 3, as the crowd grew increasingly weary, demoralized, and sick with hunger and thirst. Many openly mocked Kalu's apparent delusion, demanding they turn back quickly before all of them were condemned to death. But Kalu refused to back down. He sensed the hidden water growing louder by the day, allowing his faith to override his fatigue and emaciated body's cries of protest. Just when it seemed the villagers' supplies had utterly run dry and all hope was lost, Kalu held up his hand and cocked his head with a look of intense focus. "There!" he exclaimed, pointing to an unseen location in the shimmering distance ahead. "The songs call to me, clear and true. Keep your resolve and you shall taste the sweet waters of life itself." With a burst of adrenaline brought on by Kalu's conviction, the villagers moved onward against waves of stifling heat until the faint rush of a mighty river's current came into earshot. Even the animals stirred with excitement, as if recognizing the glorious sound. Then, like a miracle, an unbelievable grand river emerged before their eyes. Towering palms and lush greenery surrounded the breathtaking desert river that sparkled with life. Overwhelming shouts of joy erupted as the villagers rushed forward and allowed the divine cleansing waters to spill over their cracked lips. Cows and goats quickly scattered to indulge in their own unquenchable thirst, submerging themselves with grunts of satisfaction. And in the center of it all stood the blind orphan Kalu, tears of unrestrained joy and vindication streaming down his proud face. Though his eyes were darkened, he had truly seen what no one else could: the path to rejuvenation. In that miraculous moment, the stigma that had subjugated Kalu his entire life shattered like glass. Even those who had thrown him rocks and insults looked upon the orphan boy with newly opened eyes. From the river that Kalu's keen senses had found, word rapidly spread of the blind orphan's incredible achievements and bravery. Travelers brought the tale far and wide to other villages, until Kalu's name was known across great distances. Many of these faraway villagers had precious resources and skilled tradesmen in abundance, but none possessed Kalu's invaluable instincts and uncanny power of perception, a gift beyond any treasure or riches imaginable in the depth of a sightless world. It didn't take long. Travelers and elders from neighboring villages began making pilgrimages to Kalu's tiny settlement. They offered lavish accommodations, garments, gifts, and most importantly, the opportunity for Kalu to finally know prosperity and security. The blind orphan boy, who had endured untold mistreatment and deprivation, was humbled by his sudden reversal of fortunes. Here we are mighty rulers and chieftains, now bestowing him with the highest respects and platters of delicacies he could have only fantasized about. Yet, Kalu did not simply bask in his newfound glory and privilege. With an enlightened heart and profound inner wisdom, Kalu used his newfound respect and riches to establish schools and sanctuaries where orphans, those with disabilities, and the mistreated could find shelter, acceptance, and even opportunities. He became a beacon of hope for the forgotten. Thanks to Kalu's kindness and vision, the ones ostracized were given a chance to nurture their talents and create their own destinies. The discriminated became teachers, artists, builders, and even advisors to mighty kings. Word of Kalu's groundbreaking achievements spread far beyond the borders of his homeland. Travelers and dignitaries journeyed across vast deserts and seas to seek his wise counsel on unlocking the unseen strengths within all people. With Kalu's gentle encouragement, they learned that the greatest insight often comes not through the eyes, but through determination, spirit, and openness of heart. The blind orphan was his inspiration to all. In his later years, Kalu would take the village children around the miracle river that had changed his destiny. Though his vision never returned, the outpouring of love and respect from those he touched with his actions allowed him to see the world more vividly than any eyes could. He would delight the young ones with tales of his turbulent upbringing and ultimate rise to glory. But Kalu would also impart lessons of perseverance, empathy, and belief in oneself despite any perceived shortcomings or mistreatment. It's unavoidable for many. He would say in his wise, gravely voice, "But if you keep hope alive like a tiny flame, it will one day burst forth like a wildfire to illuminate your path." That brings us to the end of the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And what did you learn from this story? Just drop your comments below. Bye.